This week, you might notice something you have been reconsidering coming into clearer focus. Not because you are arriving at an entirely new knowing, but because over the past few weeks, Mercury has been retrograde in Cancer, moving us back through the terrain of belonging, family, memory, emotional safety, and themes relating to the mother line. Mercury retrogrades are not meant to confuse us, but to deepen our seeing, to bring us back over ground we thought we had already understood, to deepen, refine, and integrate the knowing that we hold. Within the attune phase of our core process, initiated by the Venus gates, this relates to what I call wild knowing. This is knowing that arises from the body before it is fully formed or externally validated. In fragments and flashes and memories, the quiet insistence of something that won't quite leave you alone. And now, just as we shift into the next phase of the process, align, Mercury stations direct on July 23rd. The movement changes, and not because the material disappears, but because what has been gathered begins to orient us forward. The extra information stays, the deeper layer of perception remains intact, but now you are asked to do something with it. Last week, I left you with a question. Before you speak it, can you see it clearly? This week, that question stops being a doorway and becomes the ground we stand on. And all month, at this gate, the work is in the seeing itself. I'm Karen Ledesma, and this is the Venus Cycle Midlife's Roadmap, a weekly astrology transmission from the Chalice Path. I'm here to help you relate to astrology not as prediction, but as orientation, a living map for consciously participating in your life, and especially through the initiation of midlife. Midlife is not a crisis, it is an initiation. It is the season where old identities dissolve, old patterns stop working, and the body, psyche, and soul begin course correcting us towards self-trust, inner authority, and embodied feminine wisdom. In this work, Venus is our organizing field. Her 19-month cycle of descent and ascent gives us a roadmap for tracking what we are being invited to release, reclaim, and embody as we become more fully ourselves. Each week we ask, what are we being invited to attune to, align with, refine, and allow? These four movements are our core process, the path we walk through every gate of the cycle. Currently, we are in the ascent, the rising, reclaiming half of the Venus cycle. In this lunar month, we are at the sixth gate of the rising, initiated by the sixth time the moon and Venus meet, the gate of perception. At the heart of this gate, you are not simply taking your sight back, you are learning to reclaim your inner vision around everything the descent revealed. Perception shaped by what you have released, retrieved, and learned to recognize in the dark. Perception rooted in your own inner knowing, no longer dependent on anyone else's confirmation to be real. A trust that has become trustworthy because it has been tested, questioned, refined, and returned to. Being in the ascent phase also means we are in Venus as other territory. This means the perception you reclaim here allows you to meet reality and other people as they actually are, not through the lens of hope, fear, fantasy, loyalty, longing, or belonging. So let's read the sky of this week through the lens of this essential question at the gate of perception. Can you trust what you see? The center of the week is Mercury stationing direct in Cancer on July 23rd. This is the pivot between our four movements within each gate. The Mercury retrograde has coincided with the attune part of our process. And so it's been a circling back, a re-seeing, a gathering of nuance and detail. At the station, attunement begins to translate into action. Keep in mind, Mercury will be moving back through its shadow territory until early August, when it returns to the very degree the retrograde began. And by then, we'll be nearing the end of this gate, turning towards the next. So the seeing is not meant to arrive all at once. It clarifies as we act on it. We take one real action. We meet what comes back without shame or judgment. And slowly, the new perception begins to inform our lives day to day. So at the Mercury station, begin to notice what has changed in your perception because you are willing to go back over that ground. What do you understand now that you didn't understand before? And can you let that understanding begin to inform your movement forward, even if it's still quiet, still forming, still yours alone? At the same time, something much larger is moving in the background. Jupiter in Leo, Uranus in Gemini, Neptune in Aries, and Pluto in Aquarius are forming a rare four-planet configuration across the opening degrees of these signs. Jupiter trines Neptune and opposes Pluto on July 20th. Jupiter sextiles Uranus on July 21st, and Neptune perfects its sextile to Pluto later in the week. This is large, slow, generational weather. But collective patterns still enter through the particular doorway of our individual life. And they enter through things like the idea you cannot stop thinking about, the work you know you are meant to begin, the role that has become too small, the future pressing against the structure of the life you have already built. So let's break these big energies down a bit because this outer planet alignment is revealing bigger patterns that will be with us for quite some time. Jupiter in Leo asks, where have I been playing small, shrinking, or holding back from the fullness of my creative life? Uranus in Gemini asks, what wild spark or original idea in me keeps circling around because it wants expression? Neptune in Aries asks, what dream or vision might I still be waiting for permission to pursue? And Saturn, also moving through Aries, asks, what structure am I being invited to build that could hold it? Pluto in Aquarius asks, what version of myself and what form of belonging am I ready to release, compost, and transform? All of this echoes the midlife mandate as this full and complete metamorphosis. And this begins when we stop refusing the perception that tells us change is genuinely underway. Within this gate of perception, Venus in Virgo joins the asteroid Magdalene on July 20th. This is the first of three significant meetings. When Venus turns retrograde in October, she will return to Magdalene just hours before stationing direct in November, and then meet her again days later at the Crown Gate, where the next descent begins. So, this Magdalene Venus thread beginning now stretches across the whole final phase of this ascent through the turning between the cycles and directly into the opening of the next Venus cycle. We'll be returning to this over the next several months. But for now, notice what Magdalene brings into this gate of perception, a way of knowing that is relational, embodied, and direct, a knowing that comes through encounter, presence, and intimacy with what is real, not truth authorized by someone else. And because this is Venus as other territory, the question is not only whether you can trust your perception, it is whether you can allow your perception to change the way you relate. What have you already recognized about the way you relate to others and to all of life that you are now ready to stop abandoning? On July 22nd, the sun enters Leo, returning us to the heart, creative authority, and the courage to occupy our own lives. The very next day, the sun squares Chiron in Taurus, echoing Jupiter's square earlier this month. Chiron in Taurus brings us back to embodied worth and trust in the body's knowing, and reveals a fracture that might be here. Many of us learn to override what we feel, to explain it away, or to privilege someone else's interpretation over our direct experience. So, this square may reveal the tender place where visibility or self expression collides with the fear that what we know will not be believed, valued, or welcomed. Can I allow myself to be visible without first having to prove my worth? Can I trust my direct experience, even when someone else tells the story differently? On July 25th, the waxing moon in Sagittarius squares Venus in Virgo, which signals the turn in our process from noticing into acting. Action becomes possible the moment you decide your perceiving is worthy of being honored before it is proven, not once someone agrees, but before. So this week, stand with your feet wide and grounded. Place one hand on your heart and ask your body, is my knowing worthy of being honored before anyone else confirms it? Then ask, where lately did I make someone else's explanation more important than my own recognition? And what is one action I can take this week in response to what I already perceive? One real act from your own seeing. This is your opportunity to align with your own worthy perception, to respond to life as it is unfolding, to act in a way that brings you closer to truth, embodiment, and self-trust, to make a choice that allows your outer life to reflect the wisdom you have reclaimed. Finally, on July 26th, the lunar nodes will shift into Aquarius and Leo, the axis that will frame the coming eclipses and also accompany us through much of the next Venus cycle. So, this larger story is also turning. Leo and Aquarius asks, how do I belong to the collective without abandoning the singular life moving through my own heart? How do I relate to my sovereign heart in relationship with the larger field? What we reclaim here at the gate of perception matters. We cannot enter right relationship while refusing what we see or waiting for someone else to certify that our own truth or our own medicine is real. So I invite you to carry one of these phrases with you through the week. I trust what I know. My perception is worthy of being honored. I can stay with myself as I see. Notice what returns. And when the moment comes, take one real action aligned with what you see. If you are inside the chalice path, bring one or two sentences into the community naming that act. If something in this landed, if you felt even a flicker of recognition that this season has a shape and that you are not simply lost inside it, I made you a free map. It's called Which Chapter of the Midlife Passage Are You In? You will find the link below with this transmission. Thank you for being here for the Venus Cycle Midlife's Roadmap. Bring these questions into your body, your journal, your conversations, and the living practice of your week. May this support you as you move through your process. And may you trust the wisdom already moving through your body, your vision, and your unique becoming.